Today is Saturday, April 29th. It wasn't long ago that Bed Bath & Beyond was a go-to place for wedding registries, new homeowners, and dorm rooms. But Bed Bath & Beyond filed for bankruptcy this week. So what went wrong? And what does it say about how we as Americans shop now? Today, we are talking to retail analyst Neil Saunders. He's the managing director of the retail division for Global Data, a consulting and data analytics company. Today, he explains why it's not just Amazon taking down these big chains, and what else has led to hundreds of stores closing this year. And of course, we'll talk about what it all means for us, the customers. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Neil, thank you for coming on the Newsworthy.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with what happened that ultimately led to the end of Bed Bath & Beyond.
Well, I think really the story goes back quite a long way, and it centers around Bed Bath & Beyond failing to remain relevant to consumers. A lack of response to online is certainly one of the problems that led to their demise. They were very late to things like multi-channel click and collect for stores, where you order something online and you pick it up in a store. They didn't inject enough excitement and inspiration into stores. They had a launch of own brands that replaced some national brands that were very popular, and people didn't really like their own brands. They didn't resonate with the customer, and that put a lot of shoppers off going there. They changed the coupon strategy, which was probably sensible from a corporate perspective, but not great from a consumer perspective. And they spent an enormous amount, billions of dollars, on share buybacks, when actually they should have spent some of that money on investing in the company.
There are other stores like Linens and Things, shut down years ago. Pier 1 Imports now has an online-only store. Sears only has a few stores left. So is it all the same problem, or is it individual failings? And is it really Amazon to blame?
Well, first of all, Amazon absolutely isn't to blame, because there's a lot of retailers, as you mentioned, in the home space that have failed, but there are also a lot that succeed and do very well, like Williams-Sonoma, for example. Target has done tremendously well in home. We still have retailers like Crate and Barrel, which are very successful. So this is definitely not an Amazon story at all.
And let's talk a little bit even beyond the home goods stores. You know, retailers like Foot Locker, Bath & Body Works, The Gap have all announced plans to close dozens of physical stores this year. How much do people still go to malls, and what's the impact of maybe lower foot traffic in malls on these types of stores?
The majority of sales, retail sales in the US, are still driven through physical stores. So there is a need for stores, but people are changing where they shop and how they shop. Retailers have to assess very carefully where they want to locate. And I think the broad message is stores are still very relevant, but you probably need fewer of them. And some of them that you opened in the past are now in the wrong place, and in places where footfall is dwindling and revenue is dwindling. So you need to take corrective action and get out of those locations. But I think you have to draw a distinction in a way, because some of the retailers you mentioned, like Bath & Body Works, for example, Bath & Body Works is a phenomenally successful retailer. So their store closings are more about a correction. They're just, looking at where they have stores and saying, well, these locations are great, these aren't so great, let's make some corrective moves. A retailer like Gap, I think, is in a very different position. Gap really hasn't evolved since probably the early 1990s. It has a big problem with its brand. So their store closing, some of them are corrections, but some of them are also because they just haven't made those stores work because they've not done the right thing. So different retailers are in different positions with regard to stores. But I think in this environment, everyone is looking at stores much more closely and seeing which ones work and which ones don't.
And as stores decide to be a bigger player online, it's not necessarily as simple as just deciding to sell online, right? I mean, what does it take to be successful in that area?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's not as simple, because if you look at just the home market, where obviously Bed Bath & Beyond played, the largest online player is Wayfair. And Wayfair has been very good at building sales online, but it's absolutely hopeless at building profit. In fact, it makes huge losses year in, year out. So online isn't this silver bullet and panacea. Where I think it works best is where you link stores and online and you do a bit of both. And if you look at a retailer like Target, they've done that very, very successfully. And a lot of their online sales are fulfilled through stores, which is much more profitable for them to do it that way. It's very efficient. The customer likes it. They still have stores you can visit to go and see things, try things on if it's apparel, but you have the convenience of online if you want it. And I think that sort of omni-channel joined up proposition is where you get the best strength. So this argument about, well, is it online? Is it stores? Actually, it's really about both, and you have to do both to be successful.
And I also wonder if consumer expectations have changed because we get used to finding exactly what we need online. So why isn't it in store?
Well, yes, I think online has raised the bar, really, and we're very used to going online and finding whatever we want and searching for it. Stores cannot do that job in the same way. I mean, you would have to have a store that was absolutely humongous to stock all of the products, for example, that Amazon has. I mean, it probably just wouldn't be possible to even do it physically, let alone make it economically viable. Online is great for providing that long tail of products that are not that frequently bought. You just cannot deliver that through the store. So the role of the store really is about edited and curated choice. And that's part of the skill of physical retailing. You have to say, look, here's my store in a particular location. This is what the customers in this location want. What products do I put in there? And that has become much more of a skill set. And interestingly, that's a skill set that Bed Bath & Beyond didn't really have. Bed Bath & Beyond was still in this mindset of like, oh, let's just get lots of home stuff, shove it into a store. We'll kind of pile it quite high. That's a very old model of physical retailing, and it doesn't really work as well. You now have to very much think about the assortment that goes into the store, how you put it together, how you create an experience out of it. And some home retailers, like Crate & Barrel, for example, Williams-Sonoma, they're fantastic at doing that. They do a really, really good job. But Bed Bath & Beyond wasn't, and it deteriorated the store experience for people.
Still ahead, our guest explains what shoppers need to know about finding the best deals right now and why those discount opportunities may not last for very long. Plus, we've all gotten used to sending back our online orders if they're not what we expect. But the days of easy, free returns may be coming to an end. That's all coming up. What do you think consumers should be taking away from this? Is there any way that they can kind of take advantage of what's happening in the industry to benefit, such as, saving money, getting deals, having a better experience while they shop?
Well, I think there definitely are deals around at the moment. The retail environment is not terrible, but it's much tighter than it was. And retailers have got a lot more costs than they once did because they're affected by inflation as well as the consumer. So retailers are trying to offer bargains. They're trying to tempt consumers into shopping. And the economy has tightened and consumers' budgets have tightened. So people have cut back and volumes have fallen, especially in non-food and non-consumable areas. And that has left retailers a little bit exposed with too much inventory. So they're in the process of trying to rebalance it, which I think they will do because they know what the new demand environment looks like. So future orders are much more conservative. Where there is excess inventory, retailers will often try to sell it off at a discount. So it can be advantageous to consumers. But the message there is take advantage of it while you can, because the over-inventoried story isn't going to last for the rest of this year. Retailers are gradually correcting levels.
What's the impact on small businesses from all of this?
I think the small businesses, though, are very much in the same position. They have to be thinking about online and physical stores. The advantage they have is that they can be very close to customers. They can understand the changing demands and needs of customers much more intimately than perhaps the chains can, and they can implement some of those changes quicker. So there's an advantage there. The disadvantage sometimes is on the scale side and the ability to implement things like technology. But there are a lot of platforms now, things like Buy with Prime from Amazon or Shopify, that allow those retailers to implement e-commerce strategies in a very efficient way without having to build out all the technology themselves. So in some ways, the environment's tough for small businesses, and it always has been, but it's a very exciting time because there's lots of possibilities, especially in the digital arena.
What role, if any, does shipping and returns play when it comes to how well or not these retailers are doing?
Well, it has a very, very big impact on profitability, especially in a category like clothing, where return rates can be very, very high. There are lots of hidden costs there. And it's one of the reasons why online profitability is very, very difficult. What retailers are doing at the moment is twofold. They're trying to, first of all, charge consumers a bit more for making returns, which is why we've seen retailers like Zara, for example, start charging for returns, and others. But they're also trying to look at the reasons why people return things and remedy those. So, for example, one of the things that makes people return is the product wasn't quite as I expected, which sometimes can be because photography on the website is not very good or it's not detailed enough. So you're seeing retailers make those kind of changes to minimize returns. But returns are a feature of the online landscape, and there are costs that retailers will have to increasingly manage going forwards.
So consumers should get ready for even more changes when it comes to returns, because I think a lot of people have gotten used to that free return that's so convenient, but it sounds like it might not be sticking around.
Yes, exactly. I think some retailers will continue to offer it. I don't think retailers will put the whole cost of the return onto the consumer, but you will see more and more charging. It's happened over the past year. Gradually, more retailers are joining the bandwagon of at least charging something. And even Amazon has now said for certain returns to certain locations that are not Amazon locations, we may start charging for those. So you can see the industry is moving in that direction. And it's just about realism, really. The consumer has had a very good deal in not paying anything for returns and not having any of the cost put onto their shoulders. Now retailers' profits are under a lot of pressure. They're just starting to change that model. So yes, consumers have to be aware.
And just going back to Bed Bath & Beyond, who stands to benefit the most from the demise of Bed Bath & Beyond?
Well, the spoils will be spread quite thinly, I think. There's a lot of retailers. Target is a major beneficiary because there is an overlap in locations and there is an overlap in the customer base as well. You'll see TJX and Home Goods, which is the home brand owned by TJX. They will do quite well. And they've already made some plans as to how they can attract some of these former Bed Bath & Beyond shoppers. I think Wayfair Online will pick up some share. Amazon will pick up some share. Some will go to Walmart. Probably a little bit will go to Williams-Sonoma. There isn't quite so much customer overlap there. Container Store for storage. So there's a whole panoply of different retailers that are going to benefit from this. And everyone now, I think, in the industry will be thinking, how can I win over these shoppers?
Do you have anything else to add or just a final takeaway?
Retail is a very dynamic, very fast-moving industry. And if you don't move with the times, it can be very punishing. And even an iconic retailer that was once really at the top of the tree for homewares can fail. Unfortunately, with Bed Bath & Beyond, they stopped focusing on the customer, stopped understanding the customer, and they failed as a result. So whether they emerge as an online-only player remains to be seen. What is certain is that the Bed Bath & Beyond that we all knew really doesn't exist anymore, or certainly won't exist very shortly. It will emerge from this process, if it emerges at all, as a shadow of its former self.
Well, thank you so much to Neil Saunders for sharing his expertise. Be sure to follow him on Twitter for more of his insights on the retail industry. And thank you, as always, for making the newsworthy part of your weekend listening routine. And join us again for our 10-minute news roundups, available every weekday morning starting at 4 a.m. So we'll be back on Monday with the latest news to know. Until then, have a great weekend.